Tasha woke up before the sun rose, the alarm clock buzzing loudly in the small, quiet apartment. She rubbed her eyes and forced herself to sit up, feeling the stiffness in her back from yesterday's long hours. Her two children, little Layla and 7-year-old Malik, were still asleep, curled up under a thin blanket. Tasha glanced at the clock and sighed. She had barely slept 4 hours, but she knew there was no time to rest. There were bills to pay, groceries to buy, and jobs to attend. She swallowed her exhaustion and started moving, knowing that if she slowed down, everything might fall behind. The apartment was small, just 2 rooms and a tiny kitchen, but it was home. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Tasha quietly went into the kitchen, preparing a simple breakfast of toast and eggs while making sure she didn't wake the kids too early. The smell of cooking woke Malik first. His eyes opened slowly and he rubbed them, sitting up on the edge of his bed. "Morning, Mama," he mumbled, still half asleep. Tasha smiled tiredly. "Morning, baby. Come eat." She moved quickly, making sure everything was ready. Layla followed soon, still yawning, and sat down with her brother. Tasha served them breakfast and reminded them of the school routine. They had a long day ahead, just like her, but for them it was a normal day. For Tasha, it was a battle to make sure every little thing ran smoothly. After breakfast, she packed their school bags, making sure nothing was missing. A note here, a snack there, all little details that mattered. She kissed their foreheads, whispered words of encouragement, and walked them to the bus stop. Watching them get on the bus, she felt a pang of worry. She wanted to give them more, wanted them to have everything she never had, but she also knew she could only do so much, and she had to be strong for them. Her first job started at a small grocery store downtown. She worked the morning shift, stocking shelves, helping customers, and running the register. The work was hard and her feet ached by the end of the shift, but she never complained. She reminded herself that every hour she worked was another step toward keeping a roof over their heads and food on the table. She greeted familiar customers with a warm smile, even when she felt like collapsing from fatigue. She knew that kindness mattered, not just for them, but for herself. It was a way to hold on to her humanity when life felt heavy. By noon, her shift was over, but there was no time to rest. She grabbed a quick sandwich from the store's break room and drove to her second job at a small diner across town. It was a job she had taken to make ends meet, and it often meant long nights. She worked behind the counter, serving food, taking orders, and cleaning up after customers. The diner was busy with people coming in and out, talking loudly and leaving dishes behind. Tasha moved quickly, her hands and feet constantly in motion. She didn't pause to think about her own hunger or tiredness. Her mind was focused on making it through the day, on getting home to her children, on doing everything she could to survive. The other workers at the diner often admired her determination. Some of them had families, some didn't, but they all knew Tasha's story. They saw her come in early and leave late, always moving, always working. She never asked for help, never complained about the long hours or aching muscles. She simply did what she had to do. Her boss occasionally offered words of encouragement, telling her she was a role model for everyone. Tasha would smile, but inside she felt the weight of everything pressing down on her. She couldn't stop, and she didn't have the luxury to slow down. Even as she worked, her mind wandered to her children. She thought about their school day, whether they had eaten enough breakfast, whether they were happy. She worried about their future, about the opportunities they might or might not have. She remembered her own childhood, the times she had gone to bed hungry or cold, and she promised herself she would never let her kids feel that way. Every long hour, every sore muscle, every ache in her body was a small sacrifice for their well-being. By the time her second shift ended, it was late in the evening. She was exhausted, but she still had to get home, prepare a quick dinner, and check on her children's homework. The streets were quiet as she drove, the city lights casting shadows across the dashboard. She thought about how her life had changed since becoming a mother. She had no time for herself, no energy for leisure, no moments to relax. But she also knew that the love for her children gave her strength she never knew she had. When she arrived home, the apartment was dark and quiet. Layla and Malik were still awake, doing homework at the small kitchen table. Tasha helped them, correcting mistakes, encouraging them, and making sure they understood their lessons. Her eyes burned from fatigue, but she stayed with them until they finished. Afterward, she prepared their beds, tucked them in, and kissed them goodnight. Only then did she allow herself a moment to sit down and breathe. Her body ached from the long day. Her hands were rough from handling groceries and dishes, her feet swollen from standing for hours, her back sore from constant movement. Yet she felt a quiet pride. She had made it through another day. She had provided for her children even if it was barely enough. She had faced the challenges head-on, without complaints, without excuses. This was her life, her responsibility, and she embraced it fully. As Tasha finally lay down on her small bed, she reflected on the day. She thought about the struggles, the little victories, the moments of kindness from strangers, the smiles of her children. She knew that tomorrow would be another long day, another test of her endurance. But she also knew that every effort she made mattered. Every small act of love, every extra hour worked. Every moment spent worrying and caring for her children was building something meaningful. Her eyelids grew heavy, and she drifted into a light sleep, her body finally succumbing to exhaustion. Even in sleep, her mind was active, thinking of ways to make life better, to stretch every dollar further to ensure her children had a chance at happiness and security. She dreamed briefly of a future where the struggle was lighter, where she could rest without worry, where her children could thrive without fear. But for now, she had to face the reality of her life, one day at a time, with resilience, courage, and unwavering love. And so Tasha slept, carrying the weight of her responsibilities, but also the quiet hope that one day, all her sacrifices would lead to a brighter tomorrow. The city outside moved on, unaware of the battles fought quietly in small apartments, of the single mother working tirelessly to make a better life for her children. But Tasha didn't need recognition. She had her purpose, her love, and the determination to keep moving forward, no matter how hard the journey became. Tasha woke up the next morning before dawn again, her body heavy and sore, but she didn't allow herself to dwell on the pain. She had a routine to follow, and the children depended on her. She quietly got out of bed, careful not to wake Layla or Malik, and went to the kitchen. The small apartment was still quiet, the kind of silence that only existed before the city truly woke up. She boiled water for coffee and set out some bread to toast. Even simple breakfast preparations felt like a small victory on days when exhaustion weighed her down. Her mind wandered as she worked, thinking about the week ahead. There were bills to pay, a broken washing machine to consider, and groceries that had to stretch until next payday. She tried not to feel the weight of everything at once, focusing instead on small tasks she could accomplish now. She knew that thinking about the whole mountain of problems at once would crush her. She had learned to survive by breaking life down into pieces she could handle, one step at a time. Layla was the first to wake up, rubbing her eyes and yawning. Tasha smiled tiredly, though her heart ached with the knowledge that the children felt her exhaustion too. "Morning, honey," she said softly, brushing Layla's hair from her forehead. Malik followed shortly, eager to get ready for school. Tasha helped them with breakfast and gently nudged them to hurry. She packed their lunches with care, adding little notes inside to remind them she loved them. Even in the smallest ways, she wanted them to feel safe and cared for, despite the chaos of their lives. After sending the children off to the bus, Tasha drove to her first job. The grocery store was busy, as usual, with people in a hurry, carts clattering across the floor, and the constant hum of activity. She moved from task to task, stocking shelves, checking inventory, and helping customers. Some days felt endless, as if the hours stretched on without pause, but she kept going. There was no time to complain, no luxury to stop for herself. She often thought about the irony of life, how she worked tirelessly. Yet the very world she served seemed unaware of her struggle. During a quiet moment, a colleague approached her. "You do too much, Tasha," they said gently. "You need to take care of yourself too." Tasha shook her head, smiling faintly. "I can't afford that right now," she replied. She meant it without bitterness. It was a simple truth. Self-care was a luxury she could not claim while her children depended on her. Her heart ached with longing for a day when she could rest without worry, but she pushed the thought away. There was work to do, and she had to finish her shift. By the time her morning shift ended, Tasha was tired, but she didn't slow down. She stopped briefly at a small cafe to grab a quick snack, her mind racing with plans for the second job. The diner where she worked evenings was already busy, and she had to be ready to move quickly, handle orders, and serve customers with a smile, even when her body begged her to rest. She drove through streets that were waking up, the sun slowly rising and casting long shadows on the pavement. In these quiet moments of the commute, she allowed herself to reflect. She thought about her children, about how much she wanted to give them a better life. She thought about her own dreams that had been set aside, shelved temporarily for the sake of survival. Arriving at the diner, she was immediately pulled into the rhythm of work. The kitchen was warm, the smells of coffee, fried eggs, and bread filling the air. Customers chatted, laughed, and occasionally complained, but Tasha remained steady. She took orders efficiently, served food with care, and cleaned tables without pause. The hours passed in a blur of movement and noise, but she kept her focus, drawing on a deep well of determination. This was the life she had chosen, and she embraced it fully despite the exhaustion it brought. Her coworkers occasionally asked if she needed help, but she usually declined politely. She felt a sense of pride in being able to manage everything herself, to carry her burdens without complaint. Yet deep inside, she felt the loneliness of her situation. Most people did not understand the constant juggling of responsibilities, the sleepless nights, and the emotional weight she carried. She didn't resent them, though. She simply accepted that her life was different, that her journey required strength and resilience few could imagine. During a brief pause, Tasha thought about her children's school projects, wondering if they had finished their homework or if they needed help with anything she couldn't provide at the moment. Her love for them was the driving force behind every action, every decision. She wanted to shield them from hardship, to give them opportunities she had never had. Every long day, every aching muscle, every restless night was a silent promise to them that she would do everything in her power to create a brighter future. By evening, the diner was winding down. The rush had ended and the noise faded into a comfortable hum. Tasha took a moment to breathe, her body aching but her mind alert. She cleaned up the last of the tables, counted the cash, and made sure everything was in order before leaving. The streets were darker now, quiet except for the occasional car passing by. She thought about going home, about the small apartment where her children waited, and she felt a mixture of relief and dread. Relief at seeing them safe and sound, dread at the knowledge that tomorrow would begin the same cycle again. Returning home, she found the children still awake, working quietly at the kitchen table. Tasha joined them, helping with homework, offering guidance and sharing quiet encouragement. Her energy was nearly spent, but she focused on their needs, putting their comfort and learning above her own fatigue. After homework, she made sure the children were fed, bathed, and settled into bed. She kissed their foreheads and whispered words of love, savoring the brief moments when the house felt peaceful. Once the children were asleep, Tasha finally allowed herself a small moment of rest. She sat at the table, sipping lukewarm tea, reflecting on the day. She thought about how hard life was, how often she felt stretched to the breaking point, but also about the small victories, the smiles of her children, the polite thank yous from customers, the quiet satisfaction of a day completed despite the exhaustion. She knew that life was demanding, but she also knew that her persistence mattered. It built hope not just for herself but for her children and for anyone who saw the quiet strength she embodied. She allowed herself to dream briefly, imagining a future where the pressure wasn't so heavy, where she could rest without guilt, where her children could grow up without the constant worry she carried. These dreams were fleeting, but they were necessary. They gave her strength to continue, to face the next day, to keep moving forward despite the weight of life's demands. Finally, Tasha lay down on her bed, her body aching but her spirit resilient. She drifted into sleep, carrying the burden of her responsibilities with quiet dignity, knowing that each day she endured, each sacrifice she made, brought her one step closer to the life she wanted for her children. Outside, the city continued to hum, oblivious to the tireless efforts of a single mother fighting to make a better life for her family. But for Tasha, the small victories and the love she shared with her children were enough to light the path forward, even in the darkest hours. Tasha woke up feeling heavier than usual. Her body was sore, as if the long days had stacked on top of each other. But she pushed herself out of bed, knowing there was no time to rest. She quietly moved around the small apartment, careful not to wake Layla or Malik. Everything felt the same as always. The dim light through the curtains, the faint hum of the city outside, the familiar creak of the floorboards under her feet. Yet there was an unusual stillness in the air, a sense that this morning would be different. Though she didn't know how or why, she prepared breakfast. her hands moving almost automatically as she boiled water for coffee and made toast. The children woke gradually, blinking sleep from their eyes. Malik was the first to speak. "Mama, can I have extra peanut butter today?" he asked with a small grin. Tasha smiled despite the weight in her chest. "Of course, baby. Here you go," she said, spreading the peanut butter on his toast. She wanted to savor the ordinary moments, the simple interactions that reminded her that life, despite its challenges, still held small joys. Layla joined them, yawning and rubbing her eyes, and Tasha packed their lunches carefully, adding a few little treats. She wanted them to feel loved and remembered, even when she was tired and busy. After sending the children off to the bus, Tasha walked back to the apartment, expecting the day to continue as it always did. She was ready to leave for her first job, but as she stepped outside, she stopped in her tracks. The lane in front of her building was filled with cars, more than she had ever seen. Some were parked neatly along the sides, while others were clustered in the middle, and people were standing outside, talking, smiling, and looking toward her apartment. Tasha's heart skipped a beat. Something was happening, something she had not anticipated. Her first thought was that there must be an accident or some kind of emergency, but the expressions on the people's faces were not of concern. They were filled with anticipation and excitement. She moved closer, her heart pounding, trying to understand what was happening. Neighbors she knew waved at her, some of them holding small packages or cards. Even people she did not recognize were looking at her with warm smiles. Confusion and curiosity swirled in her mind. How did so many people gather here? What did this mean? Tasha's hands shook slightly as she tried to process the scene. A man she had never seen approached her, holding a small microphone. "Are you Tasha?" he asked. Tasha nodded, still unsure of what was happening. "Yes, I am," she replied cautiously. He smiled warmly. "We've heard about your hard work, the sacrifices you make for your children, and the dedication you show every day. We wanted to show our appreciation. This morning your lane is filled with people who care and who want to celebrate you." Tasha felt her chest tighten. She didn't know how to respond. Recognition had never been something she expected. She worked tirelessly because it was necessary, not for praise or attention. The thought that so many people had noticed and cared about her efforts brought tears to her eyes. She swallowed hard, trying to keep her emotions in check. As she looked around, neighbors and strangers began to step forward, offering words of thanks and admiration. Some handed her envelopes with money to help with bills, others brought groceries, and a few had small gifts for her children. Tasha felt overwhelmed, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. She had lived a life of quiet struggle, of going unnoticed despite all she had given, and suddenly, the world seemed to shine a light on her. Her children arrived on the bus just as the crowd grew larger. Malik and Layla ran toward her, eyes wide with surprise at the scene. They had never seen anything like this, and they clung to her hands, looking up at her with a mixture of pride and amazement. Tasha hugged them tightly, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. Her children's happiness mirrored her own, amplifying the impact of this unexpected morning. A neighbor stepped forward and spoke into the small microphone. "Tasha, you inspire us. You work tirelessly, you care deeply, and you never give up. Today we want you to know that we see you, we appreciate you, and we are here to support you." Tasha's voice trembled as she tried to respond. I don't know what to say," she whispered. She felt like her world had shifted in an instant. Years of unnoticed labor, sleepless nights, and relentless sacrifice were suddenly met with recognition, support, and kindness. She wanted to cry, to laugh, to thank everyone at once, but words failed her. People began to share their own stories, explaining how Tasha's hard work had inspired them, or how her children had touched their lives. Some spoke of seeing her in the neighborhood, rushing between jobs, always smiling despite exhaustion. Others mentioned small gestures she had made, like helping with school events or quietly assisting a neighbor in need. The accounts were heartfelt, and Tasha listened, stunned by the realization that even in her struggles she had made a difference. Among the crowd, a local reporter prepared to interview her. "Tasha, can you tell us what motivates you to work so hard every day?" she asked. Tasha took a deep breath, her mind flashing to her children. "I do it for them," she said simply. "Everything I do for Layla and Malik. I want them to have a better life, to know they are loved, and to feel safe and supported. That is all that matters to me." Her voice was steady, but her eyes glistened with emotion. The crowd applauded, some cheering, some wiping away tears. Tasha felt a sense of belonging and recognition she had never experienced before. For so long she had carried her burdens silently, believing that her struggles were hers alone. Now she realized that the effort she poured into her family had rippled outward, touching the lives of others in ways she had never imagined. As the morning unfolded, more people arrived offering support, encouragement, and practical help. Some were neighbors, others were complete strangers who had heard of her story. Together they formed a circle of care, surrounding Tasha and her children with warmth, acknowledgement, and hope. For the first time in years, Tasha allowed herself to feel that she was not alone, that the world could be generous and kind. Her children looked up at her with admiration. Malik whispered, "Mama, everyone loves you. I'm so proud of you." Layla nodded, smiling shyly. Tasha hugged them both, tears slipping freely down her cheeks. In that moment, the exhaustion and hardship of the past seemed to fade, replaced by a profound sense of connection and validation. As the crowd began to disperse, leaving gifts and heartfelt notes behind, Tasha stood in the middle of her lane, taking it all in. She felt a mixture of relief, joy, and disbelief. The recognition was overwhelming, but it was also deeply moving. She had spent so long believing that her hard work went unnoticed, that her sacrifices were invisible, and now she understood that even the smallest acts of dedication could inspire, touch, and change the lives of others. After the crowd thinned, Tasha walked back into the apartment with her children. She looked around at the familiar space, the small kitchen, the worn furniture, and she realized something important. Life would still be hard. Responsibilities would remain, and challenges would continue to come. But now she had a renewed sense of hope. She had been reminded that love, effort, and perseverance were never wasted, and that even in the darkest moments, light could shine unexpectedly. As she prepared breakfast for her children, she felt a quiet determination settle within her. Today had shown her that she was not alone, that her struggles were seen, and that her heart and effort mattered. She smiled at her children, who were eating happily, their eyes sparkling with excitement from the unusual morning. Tasha knew that the road ahead would still be long and tiring, but she felt stronger, bolstered by the support and recognition she had received. And so, the day began differently than any other. Not because the world had changed, but because Tasha had been reminded of her worth, her impact, and the power of persistence in love. She had faced the unexpected with courage, and in doing so, she discovered that even in the midst of struggle, there could be moments of joy, connection, and profound gratitude. Tasha could not believe her eyes as more neighbors and strangers arrived, bringing gifts, groceries, and kind words. The lane in front of her small apartment had never looked so full. The morning sun reflected off the cars and people, and for the first time in a long while, Tasha felt the weight of her struggle soften, even if just for a little while. She held her children's hands tightly, feeling their small fingers curl around hers, and realized that she had never felt more supported or seen. People began approaching her one by one, sharing their gratitude and admiration. A woman from a nearby apartment said, "I have watched you for months running between jobs, never complaining. You are an inspiration, Tasha." Another neighbor handed her a bag filled with groceries. "We know it's not much, but we want to help. You've given so much to your kids and to all of us just by being the amazing person you are." Each gesture, no matter how small, made Tasha's heart swell. The recognition she had never sought felt overwhelming yet comforting. Her children were watching quietly, their eyes wide with amazement. Malik whispered to his sister, "Mama is famous." Layla giggled, her hands covering her mouth. Tasha smiled through tears, realizing that this moment was not just for her, but for her children as well. They were seeing the value of hard work, the impact of kindness, and the beauty of community support. In that moment, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. All the sleepless nights and long hours were worth it, not for recognition, but for the lessons she was teaching her children through her example. A local reporter approached with a camera crew, asking if Tasha would share her story. She hesitated, unaccustomed to being in the spotlight, but finally nodded. Standing with her children by her side, she explained simply, "I do everything I do for my kids. They are my reason for waking up every day and pushing through exhaustion. I never expected anyone to notice, but I am grateful that people see the effort it takes to care for a family. It is not easy, but love makes it possible." Her voice trembled slightly, but it carried honesty and strength. The crowd listened attentively, many nodding in agreement, others wiping away tears. After the interview, neighbors began organizing practical support. Some offered to help with babysitting, others offered rides to and from work, and a few even suggested part-time opportunities to ease Tasha's burden. She felt a mixture of relief and disbelief. For years she had carried her responsibilities alone, and now she realized that the world could be generous, that people could care, and step forward without expectation. She felt a profound gratitude that was almost impossible to put into words. As the day continued, more and more people stopped by, sharing stories about how Tasha had quietly helped them, whether by watching their children when needed, offering advice, or simply being a kind presence in the neighborhood. Each story painted a picture of Tasha as more than just a hardworking mother. She was a beacon of resilience and love, touching lives without even realizing it. Her children listened intently, absorbing the stories, and their pride in their mother grew. They had never fully understood the impact she had on the world around her, and now it was crystal clear. Tasha took a moment to look around and absorb everything. The small apartment that had once felt confining now felt alive with love and support. The clutter and wear of daily life seemed less important in the face of such genuine community care. She realized that while life would still have challenges, she did not have to face them alone anymore. There was strength in connection, in allowing others to help, and in trusting that good deeds ripple outward in ways we often do not see. Her children, inspired by the morning's events, decided to participate as well. Malik offered to carry groceries for neighbors, while Layla helped hand out thank you notes to those who had arrived. Tasha watched them with a sense of pride, seeing the lessons of empathy, gratitude, and generosity taking root. She understood that this day was shaping not only her life, but also the character of her children, reinforcing the values she had always tried to instill through her example. Later, a woman approached Tasha with a small envelope. Inside were coupons and vouchers to help with the family's groceries and necessities. "We want to make sure you have some breathing room," she said. Tasha's eyes filled with tears. She had worked tirelessly for years, never asking for help, and now help was being offered freely. It was a humbling yet empowering experience. She realized that accepting help did not diminish her strength. It allowed her to focus on what truly mattered, her children's well-being and happiness. Throughout the day, more surprises came. One of Tasha's coworkers from the diner brought a gift card for meals, and another neighbor offered a temporary job opportunity that allowed her to work closer to home. Each gesture built upon the previous, creating a wave of support that Tasha had never expected. She was overwhelmed, but in a positive way. The kindness and generosity of her community had created a moment of transformation, turning a simple morning into a life-changing event. As the afternoon wore on, Tasha finally had a quiet moment to herself. She sat on her small balcony, looking out at the street that had been filled with so much love and care just hours before. Her children played nearby, still excited from the morning's events. Tasha reflected on how far she had come, from the exhaustion and isolation of her daily routine to this overwhelming sense of community and support. She realized that life's hardships were not meant to be carried alone, and that even in the darkest times, human kindness could shine through in the most unexpected ways. She thought about her future, about how she could use this support to build a better life for her children. The burden of daily survival felt lighter now, and hope seemed possible for the first time in years. She imagined days where she could rest, focus on her children's growth, and pursue opportunities that had previously felt out of reach. The generosity of her community had opened doors she had never dared to imagine. As evening approached, the last of the neighbors departed, leaving behind notes, gifts, and heartfelt smiles. Tasha felt a sense of completion, a feeling that this day had marked a turning point in her life. She hugged her children tightly, feeling the warmth of love and connection. They had witnessed the power of gratitude and support, and Tasha knew that this day would stay with them forever, shaping their understanding of community, empathy, and resilience. Before heading to bed, Tasha made a quiet promise to herself. She would continue to work hard as she always had, but she would also allow herself to accept help when offered. She would teach her children the value of community and the importance of supporting others just as they had been supported today. The day had shown her that even the smallest acts of kindness, Recognition and gratitude could create a ripple effect, transforming lives in ways she could never have imagined. Finally, as night fell, Tasha sat with her children, recounting the events of the day. They laughed, shared stories, and marveled at how many people had come to support them. For Tasha, it was a moment of quiet reflection and deep gratitude. She understood that the road ahead would still have challenges, but she felt empowered by the knowledge that she was not alone. The love, recognition, and support she had received would carry her forward, giving her the strength to face whatever came next. Tasha finally lay down in bed, her body exhausted, but her heart full. She closed her eyes, thinking of her children and the unexpected support that had surrounded them. For the first time in a long while, she felt hope, connection, and reassurance. She had been seen, valued, and celebrated, and she knew that life, despite its struggles, could be filled with moments of unexpected joy and human kindness. The day had changed her, not only in practical ways but in the way she viewed herself and her place in the world. She drifted into sleep feeling lighter, stronger, and ready to embrace the future with renewed courage and faith. The morning after the lane had been filled with cars, Tasha woke up to a quiet apartment. The memory of the previous day's events was fresh in her mind, and she felt a strange mix of exhaustion and hope. She looked at her children sleeping peacefully, knowing that they had experienced something extraordinary. The recognition, the gifts, the community support. It had all been overwhelming, but it had also changed something deep inside her. For the first time in years, she felt a lightness in her chest, a sense that she could breathe without carrying the weight of the world alone. She quietly got out of bed and went to the kitchen, her body still sore from her long days of work, but her spirit lifted by the previous day's events. The small apartment felt warmer somehow, not because anything had physically changed, but because the love and support from her neighbors had filled it with hope. She prepared breakfast, her hands moving automatically, but with a smile that had not been there before. The children woke up curious about why today felt different. "Mama, are people coming again?" Malik asked, rubbing his eyes. Tasha shook her head, smiling. "No, baby. Today is just for us. But remember what happened yesterday and always know that people care." The children giggled and began eating, and Tasha felt a warmth she had not experienced in a long time. The weight of worry was still there, but it had lessened. She thought about her next steps, how she could use the support she had received to create a more stable life for her children. She remembered the offers from neighbors to help with babysitting, rides, and part-time job opportunities. For the first time, she considered letting someone else help, realizing that it did not diminish her strength but made her family stronger. Later that morning, she met with one of the neighbors who had offered a part-time position at a small shop closer to home. It was an opportunity that allowed her to spend more time with her children, while still contributing to the household income. The thought of fewer hours commuting, less stress, and more moments with her children brought a sense of relief that she hadn't realized she needed. She accepted the offer gratefully, feeling the first real hope of stability in years. Over the next few days, the generosity and support continued. Neighbors helped with groceries. Some watched the children after school, and others shared advice and encouragement. Tasha began to see that life could be different, that the constant exhaustion and struggle did not have to define her or her children's experience. She learned to accept help without guilt, understanding that it was a gift of love and community, not a handout. Her heart felt lighter and her mind clearer. The constant pressure she had felt for so long was easing, replaced by a sense of possibility. Tasha also began thinking about her children's education and future in a way she had not been able to before. She explored programs, activities, and opportunities that could enrich their lives, knowing that she now had the time and energy to focus on them. The thought of providing experiences and learning opportunities for Layla and Malik that she herself had missed out on filled her with determination. She wanted them to grow up knowing that perseverance, kindness, and community could make a real difference. As days turned into weeks, Tasha settled into a new rhythm. Her work schedule became more manageable, and she spent more time with her children. They laughed more, played together, and shared stories about their day. Tasha found herself feeling joy in the small moments, a shared meal, a bedtime story, a walk in the park. These moments, which had once felt impossible to enjoy because of exhaustion, now became the foundation of their life together. One afternoon, Tasha received a letter from a local community organization. It was an invitation to share her story at a small event celebrating unsung heroes in the neighborhood. Tasha hesitated at first, feeling shy and unsure about speaking in public. But she realized that sharing her story could inspire others, just as she had been inspired by the recognition and support she received. She agreed, and the event became a milestone, not just for her, but for her children as well. They watched proudly as their mother stood before a crowd, speaking from the heart about perseverance, love, and the importance of community. Through this process, Tasha also became more involved in helping others. She began volunteering when she could, offering advice and support to other parents in similar situations. Her story had come full circle. She had been helped, and now she could help others, creating a ripple of kindness and empowerment that extended beyond her own family. This gave her life new meaning, and she felt a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. Months passed, and Tasha noticed the changes in her children as well. Malik was more confident, participating in school activities he had once been too shy for. Layla began drawing and painting, exploring her creativity with encouragement from her mother and neighbors. Tasha realized that the support and recognition she had received not only helped her, but also created an environment where her children could thrive. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, knowing that the love she poured into her family was now nurtured by the broader community. One evening, after putting the children to bed, Tasha sat quietly in her living room, reflecting on the journey she had taken. From the days of endless work and exhaustion to the moment of recognition in the lane, she saw how far she had come. She understood that life would still bring challenges, but now she had resources, connections, and a sense of hope that she had never known before. The transformation was not just practical, it was emotional, spiritual, and deeply human. She had learned that asking for help and receiving support did not diminish her courage or love for her children, but strengthened it. Tasha's perspective on life had shifted. She saw the value in community, the importance of gratitude, and the power of resilience. She realized that while she had been working for survival, she had also been building a foundation for a better future, one brick at a time. The kindness of others had shown her that life could be both hard and beautiful, and that the struggles she faced could lead to unexpected joy and opportunity. Her children slept soundly, and Tasha felt a quiet sense of peace. She knew that the lane filled with cars had been more than just a surprise. It had been a turning point. It had reminded her that her efforts mattered, that she was not alone, and that a community could lift her up in ways she could never have imagined. She understood that her story was not just about struggle. It was about love, persistence, and the human capacity to care for one another. As Tasha finally lay down to sleep, she felt a sense of contentment that had eluded her for so long. She thought about the future with optimism, knowing that with support, determination, and love, anything was possible. The exhaustion of the past was still there, a reminder of the hard work she had done, but it no longer defined her. She had grown stronger, wiser, and more hopeful. She had been seen, celebrated, and uplifted, and she knew that her children would carry these lessons forward with them.